The history of gin in India is really interesting. There's the recent history and then there's this not so recent history. While the English were here, of course, one of the things that they faced was the mosquito. The mosquito didn't take too kindly to them, and there was a lot of cases of malaria and deaths. The quinine powder that came from the bark of the cinchona tree actually was hailed as a cure, a miracle cure at that point. And it was really, really bitter and not the most pleasant to drink. So the solution was discovered by some of them, one of them in India. And the solution was to dissolve it in sparkling water or seltzer and add in some sugar and a little bit of lime. So that effectively created tonic water. So they really wanted to drink gin, but they were forced to drink tonic water as well. And some genius probably put it together and said, all right. And the gin and tonic was born. It was surprising to us that not only was India the birthplace of the gin and tonic, but it was the spice capital of the world. And it just did not make sense that we did not have a gin to call our own. If gin is the one spirit that can really talk about spices, then it totally makes sense for us to make a great gin coming out of the spice capital of the world, India. When we started, literally, we had a small lab still that we set up in our spare bedroom at home. And I would just distill whatever came my way. And obviously the first hunting ground I had for the gin botanicals was the kitchen. So whatever was available in the kitchen, and there was enough in there, everything from cardamom to cinnamon to coriander seeds, of course, everything, that's really where it started from. Because we distilled 120 different botanicals, knowing that really it's only going to be about 10, maybe 15 at max that'll end up in there. And at some point we looked at all the bottles that are lined up on our shelf on the wall, and we had about 120, and we said, okay, maybe now is a good time to cap it. What's going on here is basically very different from how gins were made prior to 2017 in India. Everything that was made in India at that point was cold compounded gin, which is basically your blue ribbons, your blue moons, etc. Typically how that's done is you take lots of spirit in a massive tank and you throw in flavoring, stir it around, bottle it up, and you're good to go. That's cold compounded gin. What we're doing is different. It's called the distilled process, and that's essential to making a London dry gin, or in the case of Hapusa, A Himalayan dry gin, which is a term we came up with. For me, one of the challenges was finding juniper because there was no one else making distilled gin at that time in India in any case. The first step was actually going out there and seeing if there was juniper available in India. Juniper really isn't part of our cuisine. So you assume, we obviously don't have any juniper growing or being sourced locally here. So I actually went out there thinking that, all right, I'm going to go find Macedonian or Italian juniper that is imported into India. And with that intent, actually stepped out into a place called Khadibauli, which is one of the largest spice markets in all of South Asia. That was the time I found myself in the spice market looking for juniper, trying to go around, asking if people had juniper, but they'd never heard of it. Showed people a picture of it, they'd never seen it before. Until I came across this one shop which was pretty much a hole in the wall. And didn't really expect much, but I still said, listen, should still ask him. Almost didn't ask him. But asked the guy, showed him the picture. It took a minute or two and he kind of leaned back, pulls this drawer open. A couple of things kind of trickle down. And he picks up a few of them and just puts them in his hand and he says, listen, is this what you're looking for? What we discovered was that this juniper berry was growing wild across the entire Himalayan region. So, Tibet, Nepal, India. And I said, listen, so what is this called? And he said, it's called hauber, which is the Hindi word, but the trade word is Hapusa. We knew at some point that we definitely wanted to use the Himalayan juniper. So we had a great starting point from which to begin. And then from there, because we had 120 different botanicals already distilled, we would go in and add one and then see what difference that made. And then we would create 3 samples, and in each one, we would have the base and we would add a slightly different one and then take it out to the bartending community. Now, the great thing was we were so close to the bartending community and to consumers coming in, we basically had focus groups every other day. You have the discs for the top?
Yeah. Don't you think it's a tad bit sweeter, than the regular Hapusa, like this one? I found it a little sweeter. Could it
I found this to be the closest.
5, no? I've not tasted this.
That smells like...
Even that too. I find that a lot closer. I don't know why. It's kind of intense, but...
a bit more green, no, this one? But sweet.
It's sweet. I don't know. It could be the cardamom. But I'm pretty happy that it's come actually very close. It's come very close.
When we went down this road, we were sure that we wanted to create one gin, and that gin was Hapusa. There are other gins out there like Bombay Sapphire, etc., even as big as Bombay Sapphire, that use the exotic angle of Bombay and what it lends to their gin, but really have nothing to do with India. With Hapusa, we had a great starting point with the Himalayan juniper itself, and we knew we wanted that to be the hero. And we tried going many different ways, right? We tried going the citrus route, we tried going the floral route. And for example, clove was one thing that I always thought, when I distilled clove, I was in love with it because it was sweet, it had this depth to it, absolutely loved it. But whenever I would combine it with the juniper, it just would not work. So as much as I wanted to maybe explore a couple of routes, I think the gin found its own way. And that was almost creating like an earthy, savory gin. So, you know, in Hapusa, for example, one of the botanicals I never thought would work but worked beautifully was turmeric. We used fresh turmeric in there, and it just brought out the juniper so beautifully and made it such a fantastic sipping gin experience that we just could not look back from there. So we threw in a little bit of dried ginger here as well. We threw in citrus in the form of coriander seeds and gondoraj peel. Now gondoraj itself is not your typical lime or lemon. It's all the flavor is in the peel. So we just used the fresh peel itself and it worked beautifully. To give it a little bit of depth and richness, we used raw mango. Again, not something I'd ever seen used before. And then finally throwing in a little bit of cardamom and some almonds to create a little bit of that oiliness and give a little bit of body to it. We took it step by step. We added one botanical at a time, and we always got the community involved because, you know, at the end of the day, that's who we're making it for. No one really expected that to work, and the fact that it did, and the fact that even now it's winning lots of awards, is testament to the fact that you know, the script has not yet been written when it comes to Indian gin, and we are honored and delighted to be a part of that script writing creative process. I think it's one of those things where we all know that it's a time we're going to look back at and be nostalgic about and miss. I think it's been really interesting from a creative process, from being able to apply all the skills and knowledge we've been able to build over time, and to have a community around us and you know, within the company and outside the company. I cannot imagine having this opportunity again in my life, and I think I can say that for most of us, if not all of us, that we all understand what we've been given, the opportunity we've been given, and I think we just want to make sure that we do justice to it.